Well, gosh, thanks everybody for coming tonight. We'll hope to show you something that's a little bit interesting. Um, uh, like Rosalie said, we started our own little animation studio about 17 years ago in Chicago, and somehow we managed to stay in business over the years, doing mostly commercials for TV. If you've ever seen a Lucky Charms or a Trix commercial, or Mr. Clean, or Little Caesar's Pizza Guy, or that sort of thing. That's or the Keebler Elves. We do most of those spots.
Some of the stuff that's on the air right now is there's some Orville Redenbacher spots you may have seen where the guys how to get Orvilleized, and it's all like kind of simple. And what else is playing right now?
Well, let's see. I don't know if you've been using
Nike spot that's on the air.
Yeah, there's a Nike spot
Where the guy's playing basketball and his shadow. The guy's got Nike shoes on. The shadow can't keep up because the shoes are way too good.
Right.
So the shadow's complaining the whole time. That's one of ours.
Mm-hmm.
What else is playing right now?
Well, I don't know if anybody's been to see the movie Jonah that just started 2 weeks ago in the theaters, an animated feature. But we did a little sequence for that you can see on the big screen. That's mostly computer animation. They wanted one sequence as kind of a flashback. They wanted to go to 2D animation, cell animation, so they farmed that out to us, so we did that. So we hope that does well. So everybody go see Jonah. I don't think they check your religious credentials when you go in. You can be of any faith or ethnic background or anything, it doesn't matter. So I thought maybe what we'd do is we'd just show our sample reel. This is our general sample reel, the thing that we send out to the ad agencies to hopefully convince them that we know what we're doing and that they should give us their commercial to animate.
Yeah, some of the things on here will be just original pieces that we did, and original characters that we've made up, and other things are commercials that you may have seen in the past. It's about 10 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
So that.
Chocolate-covered raisins. You heard it through the grapevine. We're from the California sunshine. Baby, makes us taste fine. And just wait till you taste them. Plump, juicy, fresh California raisins drenched in milk chocolate. Man, who you calling plump? Chocolate-covered California raisins from Brock's. We turn good things into great candies.
Tricks. Tricks are for kids.
Finally, after all these years of tricks are for kids, tricks are for kids. Well, today, they're for rabbits.
Got milk?
powerful protector of the fruity flavor of Trix.
Hey, it's Trix Man. Yeah, let's pour him a bowl.
It's my most super disguise.
And they fell for it, the way I fall for the raspberry reds, lemony yellows, and wildberry blues in Trix.
Hey, you're not Trix Man. You're the rabbit.
And Trix is a fruity part of a balanced breakfast.
Made just for kids.
I fall for them every time.
In the fury of the night, and dogs of hell arrest your soul. When your guilt demands a trial under fire in the hole, you will rue the prosecution of your moral disillusion. You cannot escape the execution. Heads will roll, heads will roll, heads will roll, heads will roll in your cereal bowl.
New head cereal, the incomplete complete breakfast. Mama liked the sensible oats go. Kids like the slippery marshmallow brain.
I like swinging my axe around like some godforsaken lunatic. Strong Magnus heads will roll.
Kellogg's Rice Krispies is glad you've chosen to let your children spend some time with Dragon Tales. Kellogg's is proud to be a sponsor.
Pizza, pizza.
Cut, 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 cut. Caesar, you're introducing delivery. You've got to tell the world. Delivery, delivery.
Pizza, pizza.
Delivery.
Pizza.
Delivery.
Pizza.
D, D.
P, P. Pizza, pizza.
I used to think he was
Pizza,
cute,
pizza.
but now he's starting to bug me.
Delivery, delivery.
Yes!
To introduce the tastiest thing to happen to wheat in years, we brought our spokesman to this field. There's just one problem.
Hey!
He's a little short.
Down here!
Presenting the flavorful new taste of Keebler Wheatables crackers, stone ground wheat, baked with a touch of oatmeal and golden honey. Naturally delicious taste from a true giant in his field.
Everybody's a comedian.
Keebler Wheatables.
We have been in business for about 14 years when one of our main animators who had been with us for about 12 years, he came to us and he said, you know, what I really think we should do is start doing animated shorts. And my role at Calabash is trying to make sure that the payroll gets met every week. And so that immediately threw me into a frenzy to think of trying to make something like that, which is a pretty major financial endeavor, and to put that much money into something you really want to make sure it's going to be good. So we talked about it and decided, okay, what the heck, maybe once. And we didn't have a baby at that time, so.
Right.
And so it was in 1999 that he said that, and in 2000 we opened it up to all of our animators and said, what we're going to do is you bring to Ed and I an idea, a concept that you think would make a great short, and we're going to pick what we think would be the best, one to start with, and we'll go for it. And one of our animators had the concept for Stubble Trouble, and his particular inspiration is the fact that he's one of these guys that has to shave twice a day, so he he had this concept about this caveman who has a similar problem, and so he brought the concept to us. We picked it, and we went into production it took about 3 years to actually do it. It finished December of 2000, and then we started sending it to a bunch of film festivals, and then this year, it was nominated in January of 2002 for the 2002 Academy Awards. And Joe and Ed were able to go out there and be a part of the whole hubbub, and they had a really good time doing that. And so, without any further ado, unless you have some ado.
Well, in any ado, just to say this was the first animated short that we've done, and as Monica said, we weren't too sure if we could afford to be doing this, and we make money by doing commercials like the ones you've seen, and we're used to getting paid for doing our work, and this was something we were not going to get paid for, and so we kind of made an arrangement with Joe, who's the director, that he could work on it during the day until we got really busy, and then he'd have to put it aside and help us with the commercial stuff, and then go back on it. And if things really got slow, then other people could join and kind of help him with it. So it did take 3 years to do a 4-minute cartoon that way, but that was because we had to pay the bills as well. It was kind of, as a first effort, it was a little bit hard for other people to kind of join in and participate in it as much as they might have, because they felt like, well, they didn't want to, it was really Joe's thing, and they didn't want to, intrude on his creative space, sort of, and he wasn't too sure about how to ask other people to collaborate. I mean, it turned out great, but since that time, we're 99% finished with the second animated short, which we don't have to show you because it's not finished, and then we're just started on the third one. And with each successive project, it's gotten more and more collaborative, and people are more and more free and open about sharing ideas and being creative and so forth. Being collaboratively creative. So that's a very exciting prospect, and that's helped our commercial work as well, I think. Yeah. And we brought some stuff to show you. I should also mention, Monica's too modest to say that, she graduated from the Art Institute back in 1983 and made her own animated short, the very first animated thing she'd ever done in her life, and that actually won the Academy Award for Student Films in 1983. And we do have that one to show you later, too.
I'm supposed to clap.
So yeah, I guess let's look at Stubble Trouble, and then we've got some artwork to show you from it, if anybody care to see it. And then we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So anyway, that's our show. And we were very pleased that it got around the world and a number of awards. And we were most excited to get nominated for the Academy Award, as Monica mentioned. And like we say, we're almost finished with our second one, and we're going to start on our third one. And it's a program that's worked out really well for us, and you know, kept our animators happy and sticking around instead of running off to Hollywood and being unemployed. So. And we brought some of the artwork, and we also brought some other stuff to show. We can show you the kind of an example of you know, how a cartoon like that is produced. Obviously, it doesn't. You're not just you don't just start animating. It starts out as a storyboard, which is probably most of you know what that is. It's just a kind of like almost a comic book. And we actually brought one.
Zippy, his original storyboard, where he pretty much described most of the shots that you see there. However, as it goes, things changed a lot. Even the character changed a lot from when these original boards were done. And you're welcome, anybody afterwards, to come up here and take a look at this stuff. And then part of what Joe showed us when he said, "I want to do this," is he brought these kinds of things and said, "I want it to look like it's a cave painting," and so that took a fair amount of research and development to make that work. And some of the stuff that's up here is like how we cleaned the characters up and stuff like that. We used various tools like China marker and things like that to get a kind of a toothier look on the drawing. And then there's a lot of tricks to the computer compositing to make it look like it was on the rock. And you can see that there's like earlier stages of the characters. Like she used to be a blonde. And then I think we never did confirm this entirely, but Joe had a falling out with the girlfriend that was blonde, and then she turned a brunette after that.
Yeah, so. He was afraid her lawyers might come after him.
Yeah.
He changed to a brunette.
Yeah. Somehow she resembled her in every other way but her hair color.
Right.
Then there is the model sheets. That oftentimes the animators, when they're working on a character, they break it down to just the basic shapes, and they animate it that way. And something else that we're going to show you is some of the early pencil tests, and you can see that a lot of the stuff isn't filled in at all. It just looks like a bubble head moving around, but you get the idea of what the character is. And oftentimes they'll work like that so that here he's broken down Og's head into the different basic shapes. They'll work like that so they can. Because as you know, animation is very time-consuming. They want to get to an idea of a pencil test and the motion as quickly as possible, so you don't waste a whole lot of time with a whole lot of detail, and then you realize that, boy, he's supposed to look like he's upset, and he just looks like he had a heart attack,
Or maybe you look at the whole picture and you think, God, this scene really drags, let's just cut the whole scene. And then if somebody spent, days and days just doing these beautiful drawings, then you hate to see them, crying at the table when you cut the scene out. So it's good to, like Monica says, just rough the scenes in very quickly. And it's surprising how little information you can have in an animation drawing that goes by, and it'll carry your eye, and it'll carry the scene quite well without hardly any detail in it at all.
Right, absolutely. Here's like some hand models that were done, because he has these stubby little fingers. A couple of different versions of that. This is the main girl, her head, and you can see how the animator does volume studies, so that when she turns her head this way and that, it holds volume. She doesn't like all of a sudden turn this way and implode.
Right.
Which I'm sure everybody's seen that kind of animation. Nasty.
And one of the challenges in running an animation studio or producing a film like that, or any commercial, is that many different artists may work on a particular project, whether it's the Trix Rabbit or Og the Caveman or what have you. And it has to end up looking like one person drew the whole thing. It can't, each time you cut to a scene, the character can't change. You have bigger ears in one scene and littler eyes in another scene. It all has to be pretty consistent. Surprising sometimes what you can get away with, but ideally it's supposed to all look exactly alike, and that's one of the real skills that a good animator has to develop. There are many, cartoonists that become very successful, like Charles Schultz, for example, who are very successful at drawing in their style, and that, you know, that's all they can do is their own little style. But a good animator has to be able to, you know, draw like Charles Schultz or like Charles Adams or Leonardo or anybody, and you know, that's a difficult thing to do, and that's one of the things that's why you do things like this. You do the studies where you break the character down into the basic shape proportions, so that each animator can get a good idea of how to build the character, and by practicing him that way, starting out almost as a stick figure, you get to know how long his arms are compared to his head, and so forth and so on. And after a while, it's like, oh, I don't know, it's like practicing a piece on the piano. At first, you go very slowly, but once you get good at it, why, you can play it very easily and even improvise, you know, other things on that theme. And that's kind of what happens, you know, when an animator gets used to a character and draws it well.
Pencil test is a term that's used for animators when they do rough animation, and it's before all of the details are dropped in, you know, so that it actually looks like the character. Sometimes it'll just look like a bubble head, but what you can do is you can take those drawings and shoot them on tape or film or whatever, or digitally, and you can see how your motion is working. And if it's not working, you can scrap it, and you haven't invested your whole life. You've only invested a third of your life, and so it's okay.
And sometimes all the drawings aren't even in there yet. It's just, maybe it's just certain, you know, the character just pops from one pose to the next, but you can still see it in real time, how the scene's going to play, and you can get a very good idea of, you know, how the thing's going to work. Uh-oh.
Right.
I lost my piece of tape. And so that's what we'll be showing you.
Yeah.
That sort of.
I'm sorry, what?
How do you actually film it?
Well, anymore we don't film it. Now it's all just scanned into a computer. Even a film like Stubble, that's all hand-drawn animation. Once the drawings are done on paper, that's scanned into a computer. On a scanner, it looks just like a copier, a Xerox machine, and that image is scanned and becomes a digital file in a computer and pops up on the computer screen, and then the artist, rather than in the old days, I'm sure you've seen at Disney World or something, you've seen animation cells that they used to take, and someone would trace the drawing onto a clear piece of acetate, and then they flop it over on the back, and they paint, you know, on the back of the cell, and then they lay the clear cell on the background and photograph it with a motion picture camera, and that's how the character would appear on the background. And nowadays, we skip all that. We just scan the character into a computer, and then it's colorized in the computer as well. That technology developed out of their efforts to colorize motion pictures back in the 70s. They were looking for ways to take old black and white movies and and turn them into color movies, so that there would be a new market. People would be more interested, presumably, in seeing Citizen Kane when it had bright colors in it. And so based on that technology, they said, well, gosh, why are we wasting all this time painting on cells and putting it on film and then transferring the film to tape and all that stuff? Let's just scan the thing directly into the computer, and then it's and color it there, and then you save all that
Yeah, and
work.
even something like was eventually put on film, but we did all of the files at a high resolution, and it gets laser written onto a piece of 35
motion picture film.
Yeah, so it's all computerized.
Do you both live action and animation?
We have shot some live action, mostly things like a gym shoe spinning around, or a gym shoe with a hand coming in, and the animation goes on top of that. Not a whole lot of stuff where there's actually people in the shot.
Yeah, like the barbershop commercial, where it's very involved with a set and actors and all that. Then they go to a live action company that specializes in doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a whole kind of specialty, and it requires a lot of know-how of, getting actors in and dealing with the unions and
all that stuff.
Like
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it.
But
There have been a few animation houses that have tried to go into, and sometimes it's worked for them to some degree, because it's attractive to an advertising agency to just do one-stop shopping. They kind of like sometimes to just go to one place that can shoot the live action and the animation and everything all at once, and they don't have to worry about invoices from 2 different companies and all this sort of stuff. And there can be problems where you know, the live action all gets shot, and then they hand it over to the animators, and the animators say, well, gosh, this was shot incorrectly. We can't use this, and or we're going to have to do some expensive things to fix what's wrong with this thing. And we think the live action company goofed up, and they should have to pay for it. And the live action company, no, these guys, you know, goofed up. And then the agency's sort of caught in the middle. So in some ways, they like the idea of being able to go to one place to do both. But live action and animation are very specialized sort of specialties, and in order to really compete successfully with live action, you have to have a number of different directors with all kinds of different styles on their reels, and you have to have all kinds of expensive equipment and sound stages and all kinds. It's a whole other deal, and we felt that it was wiser to just stick to our knitting and try to be really good at animation and let somebody else do that, and that's worked really well for us.
It has worked well. It seems like most of the houses that have tried to be all things for all people are no longer with us, or they're here in some other form.
That's true.
So.
Do you do your storyboards now on like pencil and pen and paper, or is it done right on a computer?
No, we still draw all that stuff.
You want to do it directly on a computer?
Maybe somebody
Sometimes,
does.
yeah. You know, some people have. Not a whole lot of hand-drawn stuff is going straight into the computer. Almost always it's getting scanned. It's drawn on paper and scanned. There are programs now where there's a light table and you can sit there and draw right onto it, but almost all of the professionals just can't get used to that. They just don't like it. They like the texture of the paper. They like the feeling of a pencil. They like to pick up the eraser. They like to crunch it up and throw it when they're pissed off.
When they get really pissed off.
And that's really bad when you take that with a $3,000
yeah, right.
light.
When they throw their computer against the wall, it gets really expensive.
But generally, computer animation, which we also do, really is what that is. However, like the movie that just came out, Spirit, about the horses, they wanted a hand-drawn look, but they wanted very realistic horses, and the animators went, ouch! So I think they did some kind of blending where they ended up feeding back and forth between the two. They had
if they had a shot of the horse coming from infinity and riding, coming closer and closer to the camera, and then getting to a nice juicy close-up where you had to do some acting, the computer animators would take it up to a certain point, and then past that point, then the pencil animators would take over and match that, and then you know, blend that together. And apparently, I didn't see the picture, but apparently they did it very successfully. And there are programs where you can scan in, say, a guy chopping down a tree, and you do one drawing where his axe is back like this, and the next drawing where it's buried in the tree, and then the computer can try to interpolate, you know, between there and do those. But it is not very successful because there are so many in a really nice piece of hand-drawn animation. There are many different subtle distortions and exaggerations and things that go into it. The way that when the axe comes at you, it's a little bit larger because of perspective, or you know, his arms stretch a little bit with the momentum of the thing coming around, and things that a computer just wouldn't know what to do with that. So with some very simple sort of you know, Simpsons type of animation, you might be able to get away with it to a degree, but it's not very successful with you know, with really high quality.
As a matter of fact, a lot of computer animation houses just went out and grabbed a bunch of 2D cell animators to train, because they started out with guys who knew all the programs but didn't know how to animate, and didn't know about, that if you exaggerate this drawing beyond the extreme and then come back to it, you get a lot more punch out of the motion. Those guys didn't know those little tricks that the hand-drawn animators did, so they started grabbing these guys, putting them in front of the computer and showing them how to use the computer. And as a result, you know, all of the computer animation that is enjoyable that you see, like a lot of the Pixar stuff, and those guys were all originally drawing with pencil, and they just showed them how to use the software. It doesn't seem to work as well the other way around.
No.
So if anybody's interested in being an animator, you have to learn to draw, no matter what.
That's true.
The person who draws
Well, that's interesting.
Very demented.
That actually, that was a idea that these guys had several years ago, and they recorded a voice for a little sample piece they wanted to do, and they looked around. Who was that actually did? I think it was, what's their names in Denver?
Yeah. Well, celluloid. There were a
Yeah.
couple guys out of celluloid.
Out of celluloid. They were looking around for somebody to do some animation to go along with this really crude, obnoxious voice track that they had. And for free, for almost nothing, because they, you know, have any money to spend. And the guys said, well, you know, a really cheap way to do it is with cut paper animation, where you actually cut dolls out of paper, and you actually manipulate them under the camera. You know, have a camera looking down, and you actually move the little doll a frame at a time, and you take the mouse and replace them. And so with very little artwork, you can animate, you know, entire scenes of animation that way. And somehow the very crudeness of the style sort of worked with the sense of humor, and it worked out really well. But the interesting thing about that is that once they actually started into production of that show, and they had to produce all this material, well, it was way too hard to actually sit there and do that with actual cut paper under the camera. So that's actually all done on a computer as well. But it's a computer program that imitates cut paper under the camera, and even down to the shadows underneath it. The things that you try to avoid in cut paper animation, the computer imitated it to try to preserve that really crude, simple, sort of naive look, which, you know, really works very well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. When we first started doing this, I had the experience more than once of really wanting the job and putting a number on it that I was sure they'd bite, and they did, and we did the job, and we didn't make any money.
Yeah, right. The good news is we got the job, and the bad news is that we got the job.
And, you know, you do that about 2 times, and you go, I don't care how sexy a project it is, that's not going to happen anymore. Right. And so then, you know, you pay attention to how much your labor is and how much your supplies are, and try to keep track of all these things and build a database so that when somebody brings the storyboard to me and it's got 4 characters and, you know, 3 backgrounds that are moving, and I can sort of gauge, you know, I sort of weigh it in my hand. Hey,
well, and we have
3 pounds of animation.
Every week we have the animators and the other people, the production people, fill out a little timesheet that says what jobs they worked on, how much of their time each week they spent on each job, and then that gets figured into the computer, and then the computer kind of spits out a little fairly accurate model at the end of the year of how, more or less, how expensive, including the electricity to run the lights and all, so forth and so on, pay for the burglar alarm and what have you. Kind of, you can amortize sort of how, roughly, pretty much how, what the actual, what they call the actual, what the actual job cost based versus what you bid on it.
But I can tell you that Stubble Trouble, I think we've probably paid for 1 scene by now. You know, from what it cost us and what we've gotten back out of it. I mean, we got a lot of fun out of it, which is the main thing. But as far as putting a short like that into film festivals and winning a few prizes here and there, and we've had it on a couple of cable shows. It's been aired in the United States and in Australia and Europe, and so the trickle effect is coming through. But when Double Trouble lunchboxes come out, you guys,
that's right.
That's it.
But we got a lot of really great PR out of, you know, the Academy Award thing and all of that, and that's a lot of the agencies took a lot more notice of us after that happened. So that's sort of, you know, that's kind of intangible. It's hard to say exactly how much that's going to pay off down the road, but it certainly seems to have helped, you know, in a general way.
I actually, right.
Yeah,
I actually had one of our very, very dearest clients call me up the day after the awards and said, "Does this mean that everything's going to cost twice as much?" And of course I said yes.
Yeah, what do you expect?
No.
Somebody had a question up front.
Oh, yeah.
In a live action spot with 2D cell animation, do you do the composite?
Yes.
How much of the animation is, I mean, the cleanup work and the colorizing, how much is done in the computer?
Oh, well, the cleanup work is all done on paper. By hand. Yeah, the rough crude drawings are done, and once the scene's approved, then somebody takes a new piece of paper and makes a nice clean drawing out of that, and then that clean drawing is scanned into the computer. And,
but all the coloring is done in the computer.
Right.
And then all the compositing is done in the computer.
So would it be harder to do cleanup work? And I mean, would it be harder to do that on the computer?
I think so.
Yeah, it really would. You know, a lot of times what animators will do is use different colored pencils because the scanner, you can set it to read a black and white image, and then it'll drop out a certain color pencil, and save yourself some time, clean up it, because if you do your rough work in a red or a non-photo blue or something, and then you scan black and white, it'll drop those colors, and it'll just see the black line, and you can, there's ways to shortcut like that. We tend to not do that very much, just because we've found that it's almost as much work to try to work around that as just pick up a fresh piece of paper and start your cleanup work after you've made a mess on your roughs, you know. So.
What's included in the composite?
What's involved? Basically, anything like, for instance, the Trix rabbit coming out of the guy's head. I mean, that live action was shot. There was like about 3 pieces of that in the live action. There's the actual real guy imitating he's just, pantomime. And they shot his hand pantomiming. Then they had a plastic mold of his head coming apart and shot over blue screen. And then
well, actually, that close-up where they cut to his real tight close-up and he's unzipping his face, they took the rubber cast they made of his face and made up, and it looked like it was really him, and they built a zipper actually into that thing. And then they shot that tight close-up, and then very carefully matched up the actor's real head with it, and then shot that, and then they shot him his eyes watching the thing go down, and they matted his real eyes in over the fake head, so that they could really, like it was really his real eyes watching the thing unzip.
Yeah, so you have to put that in, and then you have to put the character inside the rubber head.
You didn't do the blue screen, did you?
No, no.
No, that was
the live action. It was all shot by a guy by the name of Kinka Usher.
So they hand you the live action coming apart, and you just
put the
rabbit coming out.
Right.
In that case,
in that case, that was how it was. But we now would be putting all those pieces together. Okay. Yeah, we would be taking the live action once they had decided the good live action take and the rubber head take and the good hand take, and we'd put all those elements together along with the rabbit, his shadows. There's many shadow passes to make it really look like he's inside there, and put all those pieces together to hopefully so they're seamless.
Yeah.
But there's always cleanup. You always have to go through and retouch.
Right, and what you can do electronically now and see it as you're doing it, you can really do some wonderful stuff, as I'm sure you guys know. One commercial that we finished recently that isn't on the reel right now is the honey nut bee meets the Frankenstein monster, and they actually took real scenes from the original 1931 Frankenstein movie, and it's the sequence. Actually, it's the Bride of Frankenstein. Come to think of it, it's this famous scene where the monster comes in and sees the old blind man in the cabin, and they took actually original footage from the original movie, and they electronically matted out the old man and got rid of him, and then we animated the bee in there. So, if you remember the picture, the old man takes a pipe and he's going to light it, and the monster has already had experience sticking his hand in fire. So when he sees the old man with lighting a match, he goes, "Rrr, rrr." And so we animated the bee going, "Hey, how about some nice honey nut Cheerios?" And then the monster goes, "Rrr, rrr." And he said, "No, it's really good. It's great." And then after his sales job, then the monster, he actually, in the original movie, he took a bowl of soup and he drank it. But then now they got an actor and they did makeup on the hands to look exactly like Boris Karloff's hands. And then they pantomimed a bowl of cereal, and they matted the new hands in over Boris Karloff's face, and it was very sophisticated how it was all done. But they actually took pieces of the old film and with pieces of new things that they shot and our animation and blended them all together, and it really looks perfect. There's a scene where he's shaking hands with the monster at the end, and the arm is this actor that they hired and made up so he could do the handshake, and then they matted him on the shoulder of Boris Karloff. And then we blended that all together with the bee, and they actually had a table with the breakfast cereal on it that they matted, and they put it all together, and you can't tell it wasn't shot that way.
It's interesting because the old footage is all decayed and grainy, and it's got scratches in it, and it's not locked down, as we say. It was like film ride,
rides a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, weaving and stuff, and
They were
matched
able to
all of
blend.
that.
They can match the film grain, thing, so it
Yeah,
looks absolutely
yeah.
perfect.
So don't believe anything you see.
Ever.
Sometimes the sound is done first. In the case of Stubble Trouble, it was all done after. There's the third one we're working on right now. It's called Botnik. It's about a beatnik who makes a robot. So his Botnik is, and that sound music is going to be done before the animation is done. And the advantage to doing that is that you have a lot of really tight cues in the music you can hit absolutely perfectly if you do the soundtrack first. The way that lip sync is done. You know, the lip sync is done, the character, the actor comes in and does his lines, we get that, and then we break that down on a track and we animate frame for frame to that track.
You have to know pretty much the visual storyboard first.
Right. Yeah, the script is written, and then the storyboard is approved, and then they go and record the voice track, and the actor comes in and says his lines. And then, I think we might have brought some, I don't know, but then we take the track and break it down by frame. So, you know, if the actor's saying, hey, you know, you break it down on a dope sheet or exposure sheet, and you can see the word hey takes 8 frames to say. You know, and so in the H is 2 frames, and then the A is 4 frames, and the E is another 3. And so the animator can see exactly how many frames he has to make the mouth go and which mouth shape in order to match that voice.
So it helps to have the soundtrack first.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
it
very
does.
important to have
You
the
can
soundtrack first, because
a lot
you can.
more delicate things. Stubble Trouble it wasn't necessary because there wasn't any lip sync. I mean, even when the dinosaur is laughing, that was all. We animated him laughing, and we threw the laugh in afterwards. So, you know, that kind of thing you can do. You know, as a matter of fact, the Popeye cartoons, the famous mumbling Popeye, they did all that after. They never had the soundtrack beforehand.
Is that sound studio that you use on Stubble Trouble, is that related to you, or is that an independent company?
Independent company, yeah.
Yeah, they're up in
It's called the
Evanston, Experimental Sound Studios.
Well,
Yeah,
they're almost in Evanston. They're still in Chicago, on the
Are
north
they?
side. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, right on the border. But it's Experimental Sound Studios. Lou Malazzi was the guy who did that. He's a very talented guy. Yeah.
When you animate on paper,
Mhm.
you keep registration from one page to another.
Well, we should have brought some of this stuff, but
we didn't bring any
basically
animation,
it's
no?
the simplest thing in the world. It's a peg bar, and the bar itself has 1 circle peg in the middle and 2 flat pegs on the side, and your paper has those same holes. And you put it down on there, each time it hits those holes exactly the same.
It's kind of like a loose leaf notebook where the 3 holes in it, except that the pegs fit the holes really snugly so that the paper doesn't move at all. And then an animator has a kind of a light box that he works with, a desk with a big piece of glass cut out and a light that's behind it. He can take, for instance, the example of the guy chopping the tree. He can, if the key animator does maybe just 2 drawings of the axe back like this, and then the axe buried in the tree, then he hands it off to an assistant maybe, and the assistant can lay those 2 pieces, those 2 drawings together, and then put it on the light box, and then he can see what drawing he has to make to connect those pieces together.
So to draw the one in the middle, so to speak, you'd be looking at the other 2.
Right, you'd lay the 2 drawings on top of each other and hit the light behind it, and you can see both of them at once, and then you sketch in the middle drawings, say. If you had drawing 1 and 12, you'd do drawing 6, and then once you like that, you kind of flip the drawings back and forth to see how it would work, like a flip book. And then once you like that, then you maybe do drawing 3 and drawing 9, and once you like that, then you do 3 and 4 and 6 and 7 and so forth until you got it, to where you liked it.
How do you know how many drawings it takes for a smooth motion? Like make my hand go like this, so it's not jumpy.
Well, it's experience. It's interesting. When there was I forget who the animator was, but he said he gave the example of animating a head, from going from looking over to the left and to all the way to looking over to the right. And he said if you take 2 drawings all the way to the left, drawing 1, and all the way to the left is where A and B. If you put 1 in between in there, and he goes, that's watching a bullet go by. If you put two drawings in, then that's a tennis match, and if you put 4 drawings in, then it's an auto race, and if you put you know, 16 drawings in, then it's a girl walking by. You know. So, you know, and that's experimentation, but also experience. A really experienced animator will just kind of instinctively know,
and
what to do.
that's the purpose of a pencil test. Because even his experience as an animator is he's always trying something different.
Right, we hope.
You know, he's always pushing the envelope a little bit, and he'll do it rough and drop it on a pencil test to see it, and make some changes or whatever. We do have the pencil test of Stubble Trouble that we were going to show you. And of course, there's no sound because, like I said, we did the soundtrack after the fact. But here you can see Og is just like a bubble head. He's actually a little more fully drawn in that than... There you can see the peg holes in that shot, the registration. You'll see like little notes from the animators flipping by, and see up in the corner there's all the numbers and the in-betweening notes, and sometimes the hair goes away and stuff like that, because that's all stuff that they put in after. Nobody wants to bother with that unless it's really going to happen. You can see that a lot of times they'll just break it down to the simplest of forms. See, in this case, that's one thing I didn't mention, is that all of the stubble was actually done in computer animation, all that hair. But for all the pencil test and all this getting the animation right, the guys just hand drew it. And then when we went to clean it up, they left all that off. And so you can see it's just hand-drawn stuff. And this is all hand-drawn. They used that as a base, and then the computer animator just followed it, basically.
Yeah.
There's a funny story about that one right up there. The stubble got forgotten. Somehow his stubble didn't get done on that scene, so we had to go back and do it after the fact. Because it was so small that the animator didn't see it or something, I don't know. This is actually a fairly late pencil test. What you're seeing here is pretty far along. At this point, we were down to already deciding on the motion and everything, and you know, ready to start into clean. But you can see, like, he's just sitting totally still there, but you notice in the animation of the finish, it actually is always moving a little bit to keep the lines alive. There you can see the peg hole registration in that wide shot. It's kind of interesting, and here's a case where you see pose A right there in the middle with the line. That's actually the instructions to the cameraman that it's going to pan over to the left and then go up. And then right after that is that you notice that whole scene, that the middle scene where the guy was little and running around from the alligator and stuff like that, wasn't in that pencil test. So we decided to add that scene. And this, what you're seeing, is what we call a Leica reel, or a pose test. You can see how crude it is, you know. But we dropped it in the middle of that pencil test to see if, in fact, before we did any more drawing, if it would, in fact, you know, help the story. And we decided it did, so then we went back and animated it. So if anybody is interested in going into animation, because unlike Ed came from Hollywood. His father worked at Disney's. He knew all that stuff, and I really didn't know anything about that, or how you get into that kind of a field. And I originally knew I wanted to do animation, but I thought that would be too technical and too difficult. So I just went for illustration major. And then when I was at the Art Institute, I kind of passed by the film department, and they had a small animation, group there that was working on some stuff. So I gave it a shot and decided it wasn't as hard as I thought. So I just decided to make a film of my own, which was a really good entree because it allowed me to go after school and bring that film to different studios and show my wares, and then start to be hired as a freelance. And you know, it's so much easier than if you just go, hire me. You don't have anything to show. If you take some time, like my mom and dad were nice enough to keep a roof over my head for a while and allow me to make something that when I went into a studio, they could say, okay, we can see where we can plug you in. And I have to first preface this that it's a student film. I learned a lot after this. There's even things like, you'll notice a lot of the action kind of takes place on the periphery of the frame. I didn't know anything about TV cutoff. You know, I was working on film, and I thought you saw the whole thing when you got to TV, but no, TV cuts off a huge chunk. So you'll notice a lot of dumb amateur stuff like that. And you know, you just got to forgive yourself and move on, right? So.
Thank you for having us. We enjoyed it. And